know, for A9 sharp 11. You know, a harmonized melodic minor.
And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the intro to the show. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. Hey everybody, Marzi Montazeri here with another episode of We'll Name It Later show, episode number 22. And that probably was the best intro to this show yet.
No, man, you can't use that. No, I was just fooling around. Hey, Marzi, man, I'm so glad to be here, man.
My great pleasure, everybody. Mr. Erich Avinger, man.
Hey.
Eric, thank you so much for being here. Beautiful day here today.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
I'm not wearing the right glasses, but here, well, dude, your playing is so amazing, and I want to just. The premise of this show is like people who I admire and that I know a little bit, and growing up in Houston, you've been such a key, just a person, player in my life. Watching you play, you sound so complete as a guitar player. And everybody, I got to see this man when I was 14 at the the drum keyboard shop, playing upstairs. I was my best friend, Bloss, abbreviation, real quick. Was taking drum lessons from Tim Root. Tim was just jamming upstairs, and Eric was playing a ES335, man. Mm-hmm. And I've never heard guitar playing like that before. And this was before, you know, I had seen you were like the first complete guitar player that I've seen in Houston. All these years later, you still amaze me, man. You still amaze me. You're such a well-rounded guitar player, man. And I'm so blessed to know you. And to know you're playing, and thank you for being here again, man. I'm not geeking out. I want to get to know you a little bit better and let the people know, like, man, where were you, before we get into the guitar, like, where were you, like, born and raised, you know?
I was born in New Orleans, and my dad worked for Esso, which became Exxon later on. He was one of the first two computer programmers they hired in the 1950s. There was no such thing as a computer programmer. So they had this huge computer, and they put out a test all through the company to see who could actually do the thing. And so two guys passed the test. You know, it was my dad, who had a degree in music composition.
Oh, wow.
And another guy who was a mathematician. So my dad wrote the original program that's still running at Exxon International, and nobody even knows what it's doing. He wrote it in 1954, I think, something like that. So my dad was a composer that worked for an oil company, and so that's, of course, how we ended up in Houston, you know.
Makes sense.
You know.
So there's the musical background. Yeah.
Right.
Does the apple don't fall?
So I had, like, from my mother's womb on, I had, Bach, Stravinsky, and my dad was into the modern 20th century composers, you know, and a lot of Prokofiev, Bach, of course, you know, which is timeless, you know, but Prokofiev and Stravinsky and all kinds of just great, what is Rick Beato calls it? He calls it high information music.
High information. That little bit of information you just gave me kind of makes sense now.
Right, and
because your playing is not, it's your compositions. You're playing just a bit about what I just heard of what you like currently are working on. Is as Dr. Frankenstein would say, it's abnormal, man. It's not of like of the norm. You know, my brain is just like my mind's blown when I hear you. So you were exposed to just the universe as musically in a different aspect, you know.
Although my father really hated the electric guitar.
Ooh.
Boy, did he hate rock, and he hated jazz.
Oh, wow.
And he was my nemesis. He was like my biggest idol, because my favorite music in the world really was my father's music that he wrote. He hated the electric guitar, but I was like, listening to, ZZ Top and I wanted all this stuff, electric got me thrown out of the house. I wasn't allowed to have an electric guitar in the house. It was like the devil, I guess. So all my roots, you know. I mean, Clapton and, really all my roots or rock influences stop at 1971. I mean, give me Cream, Allman Brothers, Eric Clapton, Leslie West, some Johnny Winter. And it's like, and anything after that is like, yeah, I didn't care. I didn't care anymore.
Johnny Winter is just straight fire, man.
And people say, yeah, but Eddie Van Halen, he's like really important, all that. Yeah, but Eddie Van Halen learned how to play from listening to those guys.
I know, exactly,
and so I was always like, and when I teach guitar lessons too, I'm like, well, let's go to the source, of this stuff. But he goes, it's worse than that, because people will come in and are into Jimmy Page, and they're into Led Zeppelin. Well, who did Jimmy Page listen to? Because those guys came up at a time where there was no such thing as rock. There was no such thing as a guitar tone. It didn't exist yet. Yeah. And so he's listening to Blind Lemon Jefferson and all this kind of stuff. And I saw this story about Jimmy Page, and I can't remember if this is exactly right, but I think it was when Jeff Beck first met Jimmy Page and went over to his house and they were hanging out. They're teenagers or something. And he went in there and Jimmy Page had every classical music composer records by them, every blues person. He had a main line to a place where he could order records from America, from this little mail order place, and so he could get all those records that nobody else could find. He had Indian classical music. He had Ali Akbar Khan. He had music from all over the world. Jimmy Page knew everything about every kind of music in the world when he was a teenager, and so that's what he was drawing on to create that Led Zeppelin music. But I tell students that, and just none of them are interested. They're not interested in any of that. They just like, show me how to play this little thing. It's like, great, so I'll show you how to do that.
That is absolutely amazing. I knew that, I didn't know that about him. I knew that he was sought after and was a very accomplished session player, and that's how him and John Paul Jones get to know each other. And then it makes sense when you hear their compositions, like the key changes and all the, it's very complete.
Right.
And I've actually used to go to record store here in Houston. I forget what it was called, and I bought a bootleg, thing from Zeppelin, and there was like 6, 7, 8 different versions of Stairway to Heaven on it before it finally came in.
Yeah.
But all that it makes sense. All the Eastern style of music, and then the classical and the blues, and all that being derived into rock music.
Right. So there's some people that are just like sponges, and there's everything in there. It's like, well, I only like rock, or people say I only like this, or I only like that, But then you got the people that are the originators of this music that just suck everything up.
Yeah, man. I mean, and during the time when I came to see you for the very first time, Billy Cobham had a Glass Menagerie record. And I remember reading on the back of it, he said, when you listen to one style of music, your music ends up sounding like a stick. But if you listen to everything, your music will blossom like a flower. And that makes a lot of sense to me. When I hear you, though, okay, you're like a garden. You're not just a flower. You're like, you're the whole array of sounds and, just you messing around here, again, you just reminded me of how great you are, man.
Oh, man, thanks. Well, it's been awful for having any kind of career, though, because whatever seems the most beautiful to me, I just, wow, what's that, I want to chase that down. And I was thinking on the way over here, it's like, well, what is the approach that I always took, without really thinking about it? It's like I'd hear something that I thought was, I say beautiful, or to me, it's times like, wow, cool, what's that, It's like, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that. It was always, I felt, well, I want to do that. I don't know where that comes from. And so I'd get it on a record, I'd put it on this old reel tape recorder we had, and you could slow it down, so I didn't know any scales or any chords. I didn't know anything, and I would just pick it out note for note, and just, I wouldn't quit until I could, see what it was, until I could play it, it's like, oh, that's nice. And then you file that away, and then I do another one, and then I do another one. And after, a couple of years, I had like a couple of dozen things, that I'd, stolen off of records. And then I found, I can play them in different order and I can sort of combine them. And I found I could just sort of make up guitar solos on the spot because of vocabulary that I'd stolen off of that.
How did you manage to do this with I want to share with you something we have in common.
Yeah.
My father was insanely against me playing.
All right.
He actually hid my guitar before talent shows. Before like.
Did they send you a psychiatrist?
Yeah, they did.
They sent me to a shrink for it.
They sent me to a shrink.
They sent me to a shrink for playing guitar. Yeah.
Well, not for playing guitar. I did get sent to a shrink in Iran, of all things. I was young, man. And I was just like, it was like not.
That's really interesting thing to get into, man.
Good.
Yeah, that you're talking about. It's like
dude,
your parents will take you to the, they want to put you in the mental hospital or something. Because people always tell me, you're so lucky, you got a musical family, both your parents had master's degrees in music, and it's like, yeah, but they tried to destroy me, man, for wanting to play, guitar. And,
look how awesome this thing is, but you can't do it your way.
Yeah, it's like...
So, I'm wondering, how did you get around, I have my ways, I remember what I did. I would have to wait for my father to go to sleep, and then I would have to... play.
Yeah.
And I would have, that whole era taught me about super sensitivity.
Yes.
On the strings, to just how.
I used to climb out the window and go sit under the tree, and the mosquitoes would eat me alive, and I'd practice underneath the tree, because if I tried to play in the room, I'd plug towels under the door. My dad, he could hear that little pick going on. It's like, so.
But you still did it.
Yeah, I had to go out the window and go sit in the backyard and get it done. I also had this thing where I'd play sick. Like I had a stomach problem, and then I could stay home. And when my mom was working, when she had a job, I could stay home and just play guitar all day long, instead of going to school.
And she didn't mind?
Oh, no, they didn't know that, I wasn't actually sick,
Okay. How did your mom feel about you playing?
Well, one time I had a Black Sabbath record in the house, and she saw that record, and she took that and this little stereo I was playing it on, and she threw it out the window into the backyard.
Okay.
I won't have that devil shit in, that filth in my house and all that stuff. Although my parents weren't conservative Christians, they were like liberal Christians. They were civil rights, and they were proud that they'd come from conservative families in East Texas, but they weren't like that because they were educated, and yet they were still, what constituted liberals back then, isn't, considered very liberal today.
Yeah.
So I didn't really come from a conservative family in that sense, that we were, although when the 60s came along, it's like, as later, I can look back and go, wow, what would it have been like to have been a parent at that time? And all of a sudden, there's LSD, and there's Jimi Hendrix, and the kids are having sex. It's like, wow, it's like, what are you going to, just because it exploded, on the scene all at once. And I was too young to be a full-fledged boomer, I was 10 years younger than all those guys, so I was 12 and Billy Gibbons was 22, But I thought, I'm going to get me as much of this as I can. So I just started playing music and dropping acid and having girlfriends and having been in a band. I had to sneak out my window to go play gigs, at night,
So we're rock bands at first?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when I was 12, so I started doing all that when I was 12. And people hear that now and they go, oh, the children. It's just like, we weren't really children back then. We were like, to hell with this. We don't want to be kids, We want to, fully live our lives, and really different values from what you have today.
A lot.
So, yeah.
So you got this going at 12. When did the other styles of music start seeping into your guitar playing? Because now you've prominent, you named some prominent rock players.
Well, that's a great question. Here, take that fuzz tone off, and I'll tell you what happened with that. By the time I got where I could play pretty well, and play all that kind of rock stuff that I like, it vanished. It vanished. The Allman Brothers broke up. Everything vanished, and it was all disco.
Okay.
And it was all like, there were no gigs, there was no bands, nobody was doing anything. The Allman Brothers couldn't even tour, it was like over, and it was over until Stevie Ray Vaughan came on the scene, and then they were able to revive it all, but that wasn't until the 80s. So you had about 10 years of like nothing going on, and so I kind of, I guess I thought I'll go to school and maybe I'll be a lawyer or maybe I'll be this or, instead of being a psychedelic guitar hippie, you're thinking, well, I guess you have to just join the normal world or something like that. But I had an experience of hearing a live jazz group. And we only had one jazz record in the family growing up because, like I said, my dad hated jazz. But he didn't hate Andre Previn playing jazz. Andre Previn, anybody who doesn't know, is one of the super polymath musicians of all time who conducted symphony orchestras and composed. He was conducting the Los Angeles Hollywood Orchestra when he was 19 years old, one of these genius guys. But he was also a really nice jazz pianist, and he put out jazz records. And we had a recording of him playing the tunes from, My Fair Lady. And if it was a fast tune, he'd do it slow like a ballad. If it was a slow tune, he'd do it up, And so I had the idea of taking tunes and turn them into things, and it would dum boo doo da 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 boo ba doo ba boo da. It had that kind of swing thing going on it, so I sort of had that in mind, and strangely, see, my dad was very odd. As much as he hated jazz, when he would go to New York City for business trips, he would bring me back a record. He'd bring me back Bill Evans' Trio, which is the pianist. I mean, that stuff's so far over my head. Are you kidding? Well, it's like, they're playing like, they're doing all this kind of, and he's going, he's like soloing over it anyway, but I had that sort of in my mind. So I heard this jazz group when I was about 19, and it happened to be Keith Carnegie and Bob Hinchin and some of those guys that back when they were in their 20s. And I'd never heard live jazz, and what they did, I thought that was just magical, and it completely took me over. I said, to hell with being a lawyer, hell with going to school, I'm gonna go just, and I had a broken heart at the time too, and I was really just disturbed, and I was an emotionally disturbed young man anyway, because of the family. We won't go into that, but I just trashed everything, and I sold my car, and I bought a Fender Rhodes piano, and I just started teaching myself jazz, and I'll just steal stuff off the record, just like I learned guitar. But I get to the point where, like, wow, what's that? It's like, I couldn't understand, they're, like, what kind of chord is that? It's like, I couldn't hear it, and so I decided I got to go to music school. So I went to music school.
Oh wow!
And my dad, and originally as a composition major. And so my dad was going to pay, for it. But as soon as he realized that I dropped all my classes except jazz, he cut me off. So I only got 3 semesters, and then my dad cut my education off. But when I was there, I went originally, to study piano. And but my piano teacher was I didn't really make a connection with him. He couldn't answer the questions I wanted or something like that. And I was there, I saw, oh, look, they've got a jazz guitar program here, too. Really? I didn't know that. I thought, oh, what the heck, I'll go ahead and sign up for it, and see what happens. Well, I go in there, and it's this guy named Martin Crum, and he's just come from Florida, from University of Miami, where he's been studying with Pat Metheny. So I just fell right into the lineage of Charlie Christian, Wes Montgomery, Pat Metheny, and my teacher, and it's like, and everything I wanted that I went to school to learn, he showed me in about a week. It's like, you mean everything I want, you can just put it on a piece of paper? When people take lessons from me too, I say, well, here's the whole thing on one piece of paper. And they figure out a way to stretch it into 4 years so they can charge you the tuition for 4 years, I mean, it's simple. He just laid it all out for me.
Wow,
and pretty soon I'm like, well, and I already had facility on the guitar, so I just started, I never, ever once in my life had the idea, I'm going to play jazz guitar. It always just something that just kept falling in my lap. And when I got out of school, but I quit doing that, I went on the road with a rock band up in Michigan for a while. And that was a disaster. Rock bands are always disasters. It took me a long time to figure that out. But I went back to Houston. From there, I thought, well, I'm going to play jazz. And started playing, some piano. I'm going to go back and work on my piano some more is what I thought. But what happened is people found out that there's a guitarist in town, who can play chords. I can play. I could play Misty, It's like, oh, there's a guitar player in town who can play chords. Phone started ringing off the wall. Next thing you know, I was working full-time with the Ed Gerlach Orchestra. And we're playing for, Bob Hope and all these guys. Frank Sinatra used to send us happy New Year greeting, every New Year's by a telegram, I mean, I just fell into that world, and then I was doing the Houston Symphony Pops, and because it's just like, well, and I couldn't really read that well, but I could follow the roadmap. Like I always knew where we were, and I always knew what they wanted. Like sometimes, this is a great story. Stop me if I get too much out of it. I got a call.
Oh no, this is amazing.
I got a call to do the Grease show, where you sit in the orchestra pit, and you play, and it's the show where I can't remember where they put it on. It was a Houston Music Hall or something like that. Some of these places doesn't exist. And I said, yeah, sure. Can I come by, and can I look at the book first? Can I come by and pick up the book? Yeah, so I went by there, and I picked up the book, and I got home and I opened it, and man, it was solid block chords written out, just like fly shit everywhere. Like, oh no! I thought I can't go sit there. 1, 2, ready, go. It's like, I can't read this. I thought I'm gonna have to call them and say, no, I suck. Oh, it's terrible. And I thought, well, I don't know. Let's go by the record store and get a copy of the Broadway show and listen to it and hear what it is. So I went and I got that thing and I took it home and I put it on, and it was like. And somebody had actually written all that stuff out, note for note. So you can imagine some New York City studio player who's, okay, we're going to put your glasses on, And then he's reading it note for note, and I thought, man, I'm just going to go in there and rock out.
Yeah, man.
And I did. I went in there, and I just faked it, man. I just faked it. I wrote in the chord symbols in pencil, for when it, for the changes that I need to make. And I went in there and just rocked out, and they loved it. And so that's how I survived all those years, is I would know what they wanted and give it to them and just disregard whatever was written. Because you can't actually write for the electric guitar. You can't, how do you write out like, stuff like that, I mean, it's, oh, he goes, I'm reading it, put your glasses on. No, he goes, it's like, it's an attitude that you can't really write that out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got into that. And then I would get calls also to, like Mike Nance is this fabulous jazz guitarist in Houston who was really on a level with, seriously, with Wes Montgomery and Jim Hall and those guys. He never made a record. He never, a lot of these guys are like this too. It's like guys who just don't give a fuck about anything, and they just play, and they're playing way better than everybody else, and so what? And they're just playing gigs, and they're just doing their thing, It's like, wow. I mean, they're better than almost any of the famous guys, that are out there. Mm-hmm. Anyway, sometimes he couldn't make a gig, and for some reason, he would call me to sub for him.
Wow.
Me sub for you? Why? I'm not really sure, because I don't know any of the tunes, and I'd go on a gig. There's this one pianist named Jerry Burgess, and he was one of these guys. You don't see guys like this anymore. He knew easy 5,000 songs, and he could play them with nice chord changes on the piano and sing them. Just 5,000 songs. So I would go to sub on a gig, and they had 5-hour gigs. Those gigs were 8 to 1. So for 5 hours, I would sit there and fake songs that I didn't know, and they're all similar, they have, but they might have, oh yeah, I got that chord. Oh yeah, so I got there, you got, boy, my brain would be like, my eyes would be crossing, And just, and the time to take a guitar solo on every one, I'd have to go, okay, let's start here. Okay. What key are we in? I think we're in D. Yeah. Standard turnaround, 2 chords. It's like, okay, I got that. And it goes, where's the bridge go to? Okay, so the bridge goes to flat 4. So I'm in D, and now the bridge goes here. Okay, time to solo. All right, so I'm just playing a D major scale. Okay, I got some right notes here, and so I'm trying to go. Okay, here comes the bridge. Okay, we're coming out of the bridge. Back to D. Okay, so you learn how to just fake songs on the spot.
That's freaking amazing faking.
And so that's how I came to play any jazz at all, because I had to pay the rent, you know? It's like, well, I would just say yes to anything on the phone. People would say, can you play country? And I'd say, yeah, sure. You know, and that's how I got to work with Andy Bradley for so long over at Sugar Hill. He said, well, if you can play country gigs, you know, then you can work over here. I said, yeah, no problem, I can play country. So he booked me on a country session. I went, well, what am I going to do? So I went down to Rockin' Robin and I bought a Japanese Telecaster, you know, for $350, you know, and then I turned the country radio on. And I was listening to those country licks, you know, and it's like, oh, that reminds me of something. It reminds me of the Allman Brothers. Because the Allman Brothers are, you know, they're not playing, you know, if you're in E, they're not so much. If they're in E, they're going. I mean, they're really playing country. I thought, oh, well, I'll just go in there with this Telecaster and this little boogie I had, and I'll just play Allman Brothers. And I went in there, and I was a hit. And I did hundreds of country records for them. And all I do is just, well, I'll just play like, pretend I'm playing the Allman Brothers, you know, and do all these country songs, you know. So I just figured out a way to fake everything that came my way. So you could say that I got a broad perspective with music, and back when it used to be that way, I could get a call for no matter what it was, no matter what style of music it was, you know, they say, well, just call Avinger. You know, and average would go in there, and if it was reggae, if it was rock, if it was country, if it was like anything, I could just go in there and, you know, for a certain amount of time, you know, I mean, I don't need more than an 8 or a 16 bar solo, right? I mean, they're not asking me to, like, you know, have any depth, but I could go in there and I could get a great sound, and I could play, you know, in time, because I did my time with a metronome. I worked out my shit trying to get my time straight enough, you know, because I'm inclined to play on top of the beat like everybody is. You know, you kind of learn how to, you know, before you play your first note, try to get in the pocket, you know, so you're in meter, you know, when you're playing. Right. So I could do that and pull it off, and but it wasn't later until I had to face, you know, the lack of depth, because you can cover all kinds of stuff, but there's not one thing that you can say that you have mastery in. Although it seems like my roots, you know, Billy Gibbons and Cream and all that. Yeah, it seems like I have mastery in that, and I don't have to practice it. I can always just dial it right up. It's like in my bones.
It's like a part of your DNA.
Yeah, there's a great saxophone player I worked with for a while who's kind of a philosopher too, named Larry Slazak, and he has a theory. He says roots, and he talks like a New York guy. He says roots. Yeah, what are your roots? Well, your roots are, you know, people talk about roots. I think your roots, that's the first music you ever fell in love with. Oh, really? It's like, but I loved everything, I thought, you know, and I loved classical, and I had all that sort of stuff, and it's like, and it only just recently hit me. It's like, well, the first thing I really fell in love with was playing one note and getting that tone out of a Marshall. It's like, yeah, I mean, I want that one. There's just one note Jimi Hendrix plays on Band of Gypsies. It's like, that's the one note. Oh, I want to make that one. Yeah. Well, I think it was on Machine Gun. It sort of howls, and it's got these weird overtones in it, and it's just like a harmonica through a distorted amp or something. It's like, that's what I want to get. I want to get that sound, you know. And I never got it, you know, but I got all kinds of interesting stuff trying to get
I kicked back the game.
Oh, yeah, so, you know. Well, I should be an E instead. And those vibratos, you know. Anyway you can get them. Or there's that one, you know that one where you use this knuckle here instead of your hand, you know, for vibrato. You can use that knuckle. There it is. It sounds like. It's like that's such a weak knuckle, you know. So I'll work on that just for fun. It's just looking for that one note, you know. So I could say that's the first thing I fell in love with. So those are my roots, and you know. And people say, "Oh, he's a guitar master." It's like, what's that? You know. I mean, I always think I suck. You know. I mean, everybody thinks they suck because you're working on something you can't play all the time, or you're hearing something that's beyond your ability. And so, when I see guitar players that seem to have an ego about them, you know, and it's just like, well, I guess it's a cover up, you know. But you know, it's okay if you know you suck, though, but you want to And that's what I was doing, saying yes. The phone would ring. Oh, yeah, I can do it. I can do it. It's like I had no idea if I could do it or not, you know. I mean, you're playing a role. You're acting confident, even though you're not confident at all. But you're thinking, well, I'll see if I can scrape by this by the seat of my pants.
But you knew that you could do it.
I hoped I could do it.
Yeah,
you know?
no, that's just like such a dangerous attempt, you know, because you come out triumphant, but you totally are throwing caution to the wind, man. You going in there, that's risky, and you absolutely going in there with love and care at the end of it. I understand what you said about the depth,
Right.
but you know, just hearing you do some open string licks and the chicken pig, well, no,
Yeah, give me some clean again.
the country.
Yeah, I was always broke though, because the family didn't have any money, and I didn't have any money, and I was always broke. So it's like I had to go in there. I did it from necessity.
Wow.
You know, I said, well, you know, if I can't cut this gig here, then you know.
But then your vocabulary is like, you know, expanding.
Exactly. And then eventually, I did acquire a taste for learning jazz tunes. It's just so much fun for me just watching chords, you know, and, you know, so. Which is weird, because when I first started playing, everything is scale oriented for me. I figured out how to go. Oh. So I can go. If I'm thinking about it, I can't do it. So there's a pathway. You find scale pathways, you know, so
right.
I'm following the path. But I'm not really thinking. I'm thinking this E minor and this E minor and this E minor and that E minor and this E minor. I'm not really watching the chords while I'm doing it. You know? I'm just playing by ear. And I practice on one string. You know, so I could find what I want on one string and not be caught, you know, and it's stuck in a box and stuff, you know. But this is different. It's like, oh, wow. You know, because when I'm playing that way, it's great, but I was always getting lost. Yeah, it's like, where am I? It's like, whoa, you know, but if you're watching the chord, you always have a chord tone. So I can do both, you know, but at any given point, oh, how do I get out of here? I can find a, you know, chord tone or something. And in jazz, you're doing that too, because I thought, well, I'm going to play these jazz tunes. It's like, well, what scale can I find that fits all these chords? You know, it's like, well, you know, if you go so yeah, it fits all those chords, but you don't want a solo that goes. Like, nobody wants to hear a solo on a scale, you know?
Right.
You want to, like, when he goes to this chord, so after a while, I thought, well, that's really cool, man. I really like playing these things.
You play endless, man. Like, you don't run out of the ideas when you start playing, man. It's
no,
beautiful.
and when you're playing too, you always think, man, I'm only grabbing 20% of what I'm thinking to grub, you know, and I thought, oh, I suck. But you find out that's what everybody's doing. Everybody's sucking because you're working with it's sacred geometry in a way, you know, because You know, you're working with not only, you know, 7 notes, you're also you're using all the other notes too, slipping in and out of stuff. You know, so you're using all kind of all just to fit a major chord, you know. So that isn't, you know, anything anybody wants to hear, pretty much, with modern music, you know. But but that's what I hear, and I like it, and it turns me on. And so, like I was saying earlier, it's like it hasn't been great for having any kind of a career to just, you know, follow whatever I think is beautiful to me.
Yeah, I mean,
because I like all 12 notes, you know.
Thank you for doing so. Yeah, thank you for doing that, because man, yeah, you know, let's man, I can sit here and watch you play all day long, and I want to ask you about, you know, how do you end up making the compositions that you did, because it's just, you're more than a guitar player, you know, you've come up with, like, just hearing you noodle around with that, you know, it's not normal. Again, like, how did that seep in? Because you're rock steady, man. You're a rock, and then you're Americana, country, jazz, killer country picker, like super well rounded. Where does all this Exotica come from, man?
Well, for my compositions on my record, I made a rule. I said no 7th chords. So everything's got to be either major or minor. But that means a major can be, that's major, like a 4 chord. So the 7th chords, they sound jazz, you know, and so so I thought, well, I want to make stuff that people will enjoy listening to, you know, even though I'd rather hear, I'd rather hear stuff like that, you know. It's like, whoa, what is that? Oh, that's a 7 sharp 5 sharp 9, you know. There, you know. But here, it's a B 9 sharp 11, you know. And here it's F minor. Here it's an F minor 6/9, F minor major 7. It's like, oh, so that one shape is giving me all these different chords. Man, I just think that's so interesting. But yeah, if I'm gonna make some music, commercial music, you have to leave all that. You have to leave all that stuff out. So I'd follow that rule, and it's just whatever I could hear, you know, to go to things. I'm not really sure how to answer the question exactly. It's like, there's this idea. You can shrink 4 years of music theory down into, like, you know, one piece of paper. You know, because you're saying, well, there's only 3 kind of chords. There's major chords, there's minor chords, and there's 7th chords. That's the only kind of chords there are. And so you say, well, here's a major chord. Well, how about a major 7? Oh, it's got a major 7 and a 3rd in it. Oh, so I can play, I can play only these 2 notes, and it sounds major. For minor, it's got a flat 7 and a minor 3rd. Oh, so I can play 2 notes, and it's minor. Oh, yeah. Major, minor, and the 7th chord, it's got a flat 7 and a major 3rd. So there's major, minor, and 7th. That's all there is. And so then, well, what do I do with these extra strings? Well, what notes that sound nice here? Oh, 6 sounds nice. So 2 sounds nice, because I'm just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You know, so I've got 1, I've got 7, 3, 6, 9. And for soloing too, you know, here's the chord. I go 6, 9, 6, 9, it's like, oh, cool! It makes this little shape. It's like, well, that's not hard. You find these little things, it's like, that's not hard. In fact, it's easier to do that than it is to do that, right? That's hard. Playing these chords that everyone's playing, it's like, man, that's wearing my ass out. You know, I'd rather go. For F9 sharp 11. Use the open string. There you go. It's a flat 7. There's a 6. There's your 9. There's your sharp 11. If you name everything from an F, right? Over this. And then E. And what I like to do is mix in Stevie Ray stuff and my Allman Brothers stuff and the Johnny Winter. I like to hear that stuff mixed in, you know. Or a Wes Montgomery lick. It's like, wow, it's like a language, you know? You're learning these little words and stuff, you know? But you can't really use those in modern music. You just have to go. You know, you have to play simple and play beautiful, and, you know, that's what you have to do to survive.
Boring,
you know?
man.
Well, I just, you know, for D7, it's like, oh man, I love like a D13. Like that one. And the licks that fit that chord. And it's like, that's fun. So I know, like, you know, when I play that shape, I can think of 3 or 4 licks I like that fit it, and I can combine those licks together and come up with something different, you know, and mix them up, you know. So I'm not, you know, I'm just. What I hate to do is play anything I've worked out in advance. I hate that because I'm lazy. And I could do it, you know, you work a piece of music out, and you play it over and over and over until you get it perfect, like classical approach. And I'm not against it. I mean, that's really great, and I think a lot of metal is like that. I mean, the songs are really tight, and they're really composed, and they sound fantastic, and it's a challenge to work the part up so you can play really in time, you know, and get everything, you know, that's fantastic. It's just like classical music, like playing Bach, you know, or something like that, you know. You're getting it all together. But man, I was always too lazy for that. Maybe it's because I took too much acid when I was 12 years old, you know. I mean, I just want to blank. I want my mind to go completely blank. I want to have no idea what I'm going to play before I play it, and I want to just like put together on the fly whatever I can in the moment.
Just,
you know,
man,
is what I prefer to do.
That's music. You know? That's real music, though. That's real. That's like you're surfing in the waves of sound, man. And like, you know, it's such an oral experience, man. It's like a true oral ecstasy. And you get to, I can't imagine what that would feel like. Oh, obviously it's a personal trip for everybody. But just watching you play, watching this freedom in your playing, and having you explain it the way you explain it. It's like,
in a way, I'm not doing anything different from when I was 11 and 12. You know, I learned an A minor chord. You know, it's like, well, are there any other A minors? It's like, here's one. Are there any other ones? There's this one, but I didn't see it yet. Because it's uncomfortable. Yeah. How about this one? You know, this one. You know? And so, well, oh, cool. How about this one? Minor 9s. Oh, how about that one? Oh, look. Oh, a minor 11. Oh, how about it? What if I put the 9 here and the A minor 7? How about if I move it up? I even like the ugly ones. That sounds really wrong. It's like, ooh, it's kind of like, oh, baby, what do you want next, you know? And it's just like, I don't know. It's like, oh no, evil. Oh, but it's getting better. You know, it's like, wow, you know. So I would do stuff like that, you know. And so now when I think A minor, I think, well, man, I just, here's all the A minors that I kind of know, you know, and I just throw down the ones at the moment I feel like throwing down. And so it's really kind of simple in a way. I'm not thinking. There's no thinking involved, you know. I'm just like, my hand's doing the thinking for me.
You're speaking.
Yeah.
You're speaking through the notes.
If I sit here and go, well, I have no idea what to play. Yeah, if you say A minor, then I go, oh, blah, 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 my mind's going like, my hand actually is going A minor, A flat minor. I have to, you know, it slows me down a little bit, you know, but I've got a couple of good A flat minors. That's a nice. But it's like, but I don't use A flat minor that much, you know, so I'm not going to be as fast with it. Or G minor. That's a nice one. F minor. Here's a good one. E minor, E flat minor, D minor, it's a good one, because you have so many open string. D flat minor, C minor, B minor, B flat minor. There's not much for B flat minor. Then back to A minor. So just for kicks, let's just, do minor in all 12 keys and see what you can find, and the guitar is unique because some keys, cool, you can get like, open strings, and other ones is like B flat minor, blah, you're just kind of stuck there, So you try to find something to do when you get there. But it looks also complex, but it's like, if you take it back, it's like, well, all I'm doing is just, how many B flat minors, can I find? How many A's can I find?
How did you? Because you said your time was limited in education style, so you had to get out of it. How did you continue to get to these levels where I'll be honest with you, man. I feel like I don't know what the hell I'm doing playing guitar, watching you play.
Well, I'll just say, if I want an A minor, it's like, well, let's say I don't know anything, like when I started, what I would think is, I learned these notes on these two strings, okay? So I can find, with the dots, here's G, A, B, and C sharp. Here's C, D, E, and F sharp. Mm-hmm. And so if I need an F, that's going to be between here. I don't have to memorize all 12. I can just kind of shoot through the middle,
Right.
And so once I find the note I want, now I don't care what note name it is anymore. It's like this note. It's like, well, what can I play on this side of it? I didn't know anything about what boxes you play in. I thought, well, if I'm here, there's these notes. What can I play on this side of it? Okay, about this one, what can I play? Same thing. Okay, how about this one? On this side of it. See, I would just play on this side of it, play on that side of it. And in so doing, I ended up learning all 5 forms without thinking about it, without thinking what the form is, Later on you get these books that say, here's this is, here's the next one going down. So people are memorizing. They're memorizing the shape. Right. Well, instead of that, just think, play on this side of it, play on that side of it, and then use your ear. If I want I just want to be able to play the same idea off of any root.
Right, so you were chasing tonal ideas and sounds as opposed to just learning boxes.
Right, and the that box right there.
There's something internal about you. The thing that you are chasing. Or going after it to say,
Well, I'm lazy. I'm trying to find a way to cheat. I don't want to learn all that stuff.
Well,
I'm finding a way to cheat. I don't really care to learn all those forms and patterns. I just, whatever note I'm on, I want to be able to play something that I can hear on it. And I'm either going to be on this side of the note or that side of the note.
And to me, that's genius.
That's it,
I love that. That's what's the attitude, the rock about it. It's like, we'd hate to be doing something so cool with an instrument, but being forced to be, told to be done, do it this way.
And then much later, I had to take my bitter medicine and realize, okay, I need to get my numbers together. Okay, there's my flat 7, there's my 3, there's my 5, there's a root. Oh, if that's a 5, that's a sharp 5, and that's a 6. If that's a root, here's a flat 9, there's a 9, here's a sharp 9. Okay. If that's a major 3rd, there's a minor 3rd. Here's a 4, and so if I keep the flat 7, there's a major 7, there's a 6, oh, I see. So really, I'm being able to, 1, flat 2, 2, minor 3, major 3rd, 4, sharp 4, 5, sharp 5, or flat 6. You just get all your numbers together, and then I can think, oh, give me a sharp 9. Give me a flat 9. Give me a 6, flat 6. But and I practice like hearing them like, there's a flat 9, there's a 9, there's a minor 3, there's a 3, there's a 4, there's a sharp 4 or 5, so I can, whatever I hear, I can actually stick a number on it, and then I can just play by number. And you sort of need that to play complex chords, because at any given point, you really kind of know where all your, when I first started doing that, I thought, man, that's hard, because I'm used to just playing ZZ Top, dude, I'm just used to playing rock. And I gotta think all these numbers, but after a while, you learn them, and then it starts to fire more quickly.
So those 5-hour gigs probably helped.
They absolutely did.
And all the sessions, throwing yourself into the fire.
Right, but still, when I have any kind of guitar solo in jazz or anything, the first thing I do. That's the first thing I think, It's like, okay, I'm always going to start with my roots, and then and come to find out that, this is funny, I didn't start sounding good playing jazz when I was first learning it and stuff. You're learning this scale, and you're learning these patterns, and you just, it just sounds dinky-dink, and you listen to a lot of jazz. I'm sorry, I don't mean to insult anybody. A lot of people, younger people that are playing jazz now, they sound correct and everything, but it sounds dinky-dink. Dinky, 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 poopy, 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 poop. It's just like,
going through the motion.
Like, okay, we'll give you a diploma now. You've like graduated and stuff. I didn't start sounding good until I started putting my blues back into it, because I was thinking, as if. And if you listen to Wes Montgomery, he's doing that with his thumb, He's going, you're finding mixing, to make some music out of it, Instead of like, I'm playing with the really heavy strings, I'm going. Which is cool, but, it's like, whoa, let's put some spooge in there, man.
Yeah, man.
And then it sounds good, and people go, yeah, and it can still fit the chord change. That's just me. It's not anybody else.
It's the soul having a human experience through strings, man.
Yeah.
And
I need to tell you a little story about that, since we're talking about improvising and making your mind blank, and that's what I like to do. But for classical music and metal and stuff, it's different. You're composing everything and working it out and getting your execution up. So like if you have a gig and you're a classical musician, you're practicing and preparing so that you can go stand up in front of the orchestra and nail that shit, right? And for a metal band, the same thing. You're going to go up there and you have to nail it so that you have enough attention left over to style, and to bring the energy too. You can't only just be focusing on just playing correctly. It's got to be so, under your fingers, that you can get up there and go, ha, and do your,
life.
and rock, and rock out, and because it's like a party, and so, which is sort of the opposite thing I like to do. But I thought a way to finally get even with my dad, who's no longer with us, who hated the guitar. Okay, so here's my dad's music that we discovered in the bottom of a drawer. My mom and I did after he died. I was like, what's this? We didn't know that this existed. A concerto for violin or orchestra, fully orchestrated. And it's in 3 movements, a concerto. And you get to the 3rd movement, and his hand just leaves the page, unfinished. I thought, well, man, that'd be pretty cool, if the son finished the concerto. And I thought, man, that would be even cooler, to play the violin part on the electric guitar. So my dad always hated the electric guitar, so it's like, I think he would like it now where he's at, But the only problem with that is like, well, I've never orchestrated anything for symphony orchestra before, It's like, how am I going to get this done? And I had to enter, his handwritten score into, finale, so it's a digital form, for orchestra to play, and export everything to get the virtual orchestra to play it, to hear what it sounded like, and then put it's like, it's one of the most hardest things I ever did. But I thought that would be terrible, to have that idea, and leave the planet before I actually did it, So anyway, here's the 3rd movement, orchestrated with electric guitar instead of violin. Here's where my dad's hand leaves the page.
never heard the electric guitar player roll as such. I mean, that was like, yeah, man. That's talk about a religious experience. That's amazing. Your father is smiling like at this moment. Man, that's absolutely. I've never heard a composition like that before. I've never heard the electric guitar player roll like that before.
You know, hanging out with you, Marzi, it makes me hear things. You know, that'd sound great with a metal group, and to hell with the orchestra. The whole thing ought to be like orchestrated with the big double bass kick drums, you know,
Yeah,
and the big. That would sound outrageous just to orchestrate it, you know, with a metal band, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, without a doubt, yeah, that's absolutely, like, very amazing, man. That was amazing. That's absolutely amazing. That's truly, oh, man. I don't even know what to say.
Well, let's do another one, and you can do the edit right and just put these in different places or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So I'll give you an intro for this one. Well, when I was living in Italy with my outrageous Brazilian Spanish girlfriend, we were hanging out in the piazza one day, and we looked up, and these swallows, these birds, they do these things called mesmers. You've seen, like, where they get together and they do these patterns in the air. But these birds were doing like a tornado up in the air, and the birds, the ones at the top would dive bomb down the middle and then go up again. And they did it for about 20 minutes. Must have been, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of them. I thought there and watched that. And I was in love, and there's the girl, and there were the birds. I went, it's just like one of those moments in time, you know. It's like, I thought, man, if I could make a piece of music, that made those birds fly like that, you know, and dive bomb and up and down. And so I started working on it. That was a long time ago. And at the time, I had like a record deal, and I had a record out, and so I had this new music I was working on in Italy, you know. And when I got back, the record label says, I will not support this new music of yours, you know. I will only support you to go in the studio, and we'll make a record where you just rock out over one chord, you know, for a whole record. And it's like, so I had all this music, you know, and it was like, you know, so I thought, I'll get this one done anyway. You know, with the way I thought to get those birds to go up and down, there's this thing where you can, you play this little rule where you say, you go up the neck, and wherever you can play an open string, you do, and wherever you can play a harmonic, you do. So you can get like E minor, which is D major, really. So you can get three going at the same time. And I can't do it. I have to practice to get it. You know, it's hard to get it fast, you know, and then back coming down. And you can do diminished stuff like that too. You can get or like, of course, it sounds so weird that you can only just, like, the tune's going on, and you can go, you can only get just like a piece of it, you know. But I've got some things like that to try to make the birds fly, and I think I got them to fly here and there. But anyway, with that in mind, here's the work title is The Birds of Santa Maria Novella, but I just call it Birds. Here we go.
that was absolutely humbling to, man. I mean, I don't even know how to thank you for sharing that with me.
It's a really messy, rough mix, but you
both of those were like, the first time, you've tasted this insane dish. you want it again?
It's crazy, man. I mean, only a fellow guitar player, I think, would really enjoy that.
I don't know if you're a lover of music, that is alone astonishing, man. It's both compositions, absolutely humbling. I mean, what you did with it. I love the open string licks and the use of harmonics, by the way, too, man. They're like rules.
Yeah, well, I can't really play fast, so I got to come up with something
I don't know about
to do.
that, man.
It's interesting.
You keep saying that, but just
I got a couple of fast
there's
things.
just so much stuff that was going on, man. I really can't wrap my head around it all. But just the freedom in your playing, nothing got repeated, and this just like out of nowhere harmonies joining in, coming in. There's just so much going on, just so much going on with the composition. It's like wind going through a garden, and everything's just so radiant, and everything's showing itself. It's like this, there's so many.
I know it's too busy. I like simple stuff too, but I thought, man, if it's too busy, that's too bad, because I just have all this stuff I'm going to get in there.
Please make it.
And let's just put the kitchen sink in and see if we can make it all work.
I don't see
I'll
how
try to clean it up later, and it's like.
I literally without just being a listener and enjoying it. Outside of just enjoying it the way I did, I can't even wrap my head around it. And so when I would have to listen to it over and over. That's what I'm saying. This was
I hope so. I like a piece of music that you listen. If you listen, every time you hear it, you think, well, that's a completely different piece of music than what I remember. That you hear something different every time. I really like to try to do compositions.
Yeah, that was just so much fun. There was just so much goodness going on, man. There was, and honestly, for you to verbally. Kind of like give the backstory about the birds, and then to hear it be put into notes, and then
they sort of flew for a minute, didn't they?
Just not so much the birds, but the vibe of the melodic choice of notes for where you were at. You could actually feel this place on earth that you were at, and being in love, all that. So This is for me has been one of the most humbling sit downs I've had ever.
Oh, come on, man, you're a badass.
Yeah, well, let's not go there.
No, it's like really. I'm thinking, I always wanted to do a metal thing, get it all tracked and stuff, and I never have. And it's like, you think, let's come up with something. I'll come up with something. You could inspire me to want to do some metal stuff.
You could do anything.
Man, your metal stuff is just like, it's so on the money, dude, and high energy. I'm like, that would really be fun challenge for me.
I'm a one-trick pony, man. I always say I'm a fat kid in a buffet line, and I like everything, and I do. I like everything musically. I like everything. And I like watching Jerry Reed and Chet Atkins go off and do everything the guitar players are doing today. Then in the '70s, and then like earlier on, and monsters like Wes Montgomery. But then again, just watching you play, you're one of the few people in my life that I've told you while we were, there's a beautiful day outside in Houston. By the way, we were outside just chatting. That you have a voice. You're not a jazz guy, country guy. Americana, rock, you're just everything. Your music. You express all this, and those two compositions. That's your guitar playing alone is just humbling, and how much freedom there is in the voicings, and the entire time you played today, you just don't run out of ideas, and then you haven't repeated one thing yet.
Well, you know what, man? I will say one thing about Erich Avinger is he is an American guitarist.
Yes.
Okay? So whatever he is or isn't, it's like, I am an American guitarist. So whatever that is, there it is.
I think that, and I find that the most beautiful thing about you, man. You come from such beautiful pedigree, background, the role your mom played, the role your father played, and I'm here as a music lover. I wouldn't be doing this, and I wouldn't have you as a guest if it weren't for that initial love for music. But to have it be told in this way, I've never heard it be told this way before. it's rather fascinating to me, man. Your whole story as a whole is fascinating, and I think, I think the viewers can kind of like testify now. I can see like as a young music lover, as a guitar lover, hearing you play, and the the doors you opened were musically for me, because I was just getting into things, and I loved Pat Metheny, and I don't think I had heard Steve Morse just yet, or Holdsworth and any of that. You were literally the first. I will use the word fusion player. What I mean by that is just well-rounded, like you just all these sounds were coming out of the guitar, and I really couldn't figure out what and when. And I'm still sitting in front of you. I can't. I still don't get it, but I hear it and I totally feel it in my soul, and that is just to have a human experience, and to go through so much work and so many human experiences, and then still be in a love affair with something that gives beauty to it all, so nothing you've gone through has gone through in vain, and then actually have recordings like that. This today's been the most humbling experience I've had, Eric.
Well, man, this is the most fun I've ever had doing any kind of interview and stuff. I just can't tell you how honored I was when you called to have me come, and do this too, because I have so much.
Honor's mine.
I have so much respect for you, man. You're a guy who's like, really gone to the woodshed and upped their game, and not just and that's really what it is. We're going for excellence at whatever it is that we do, and you're really, man, I
haven't done enough, man. Having you and your friends, Brandon Nance, and we spoke about his father, and you spoke that way about him. You're talking about. They would go from like till the wee hours of the morning, and the man would not run out of ideas.
Killing me.
You've inspired me, man, again to no end. You inspired me when I first saw you play, and I followed with you. And one thing we haven't covered though, because after I'd first seen you play, the next thing I heard about you was like I was at a record store, and the kid was in the back who goes, "Man, check this out, man." I go, "Dude, I know Erich Avinger. Like I know of you, And so let's get into some of your history of what you've left behind on vinyl and CDs.
Oh yeah, I've got 3 semi-international releases. I say semi-international because they're with a small label instead of a big label, but with the same label, with the Heart Music label. First one's called Heart Magic, which is out of print, but you can find it, cruising around for cheap, on eBay and stuff. The second one is called SI, meaning yes. The third one is called Poets, Misfits, Beggars, and Shamans, which refers to a bunch of misfits that I used to hang around with in New Mexico when I was living out there. Poets, Misfits, Beggars, and Shamans. And half of it is this crazy stuff that I was recording out in New Mexico, and the other half is from a live gig that was done in Austin. And that's the 3 I've got, and you could probably just, Google. Well, you gotta spell my name. Nobody can spell it. ErichAvinger, and you can get stuff on. Some of that stuff's really cheap. Comes up on eBay. You can just get them.
So are they available on like like the music platforms that take your money?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can go on Spotify. I think they've got them on there, and that record label kind of let everything go fallow for a while. They weren't doing anything for the last several years, but they were still. I think they still carry it. On Spotify.
We'll have your name spelled out
right.
as you and then it's where does that originate from, Avinger?
It started out as Gabinger, and when they got here, they said, "Oh no, you're Avinger," and they changed it like they did to all immigrants here. But it was originally Swiss German.
Huh.
So I'm the kind of mutt American dog that I am is German, French, Scotch Irish, basically.
Yeah, man, you're the type of man and player I look up to, and I'm something drawn me. I'm so happy that being the immigrant little kid, hanging around with Bloss and Tim Root, and having this musical background, and going to the drums keyboard shop, and then seeing Keith Carnegie's drum set going.
All right.
What is that? Because there's sheets of metal hanging, and there's all these foot pedals for different things, and
yeah,
getting a 45 and was so avant-garde. But your playing was never. It was very outside, and it makes complete sense. Though it's just like it's like looking at it. You know, it's like a Picasso painting or something. You know, it's just the way you approach it is just really, really beautiful, man. And that, that's just what makes you. And I'm happy that you took your time to come here today.
Man, I'm so grateful to be here and to hang out and to share my life and my music with you. And it's like it's wonderful. It's been fabulous.
Are you